Welcome back to Unquiet You. Today we're going to talk about being the loudest in the room and how that actually is not serving your confidence. I get asked a lot about confidence and how you know when someone has self-confidence and how they show up. And going back to when I was in my early 20s, I was the life of the party. I would go to events and I was like loud and I would be on the dance floor dancing and I was just out there all the time. And everyone assumed that I was very confident and everyone assumed that I was very outgoing. I was always told you're such an extrovert and you're up for anything. And I was to an extent, but what I realized is the louder I got, like at my loudest moments on the outside were actually my lowest moments on the inside. And I could see myself showing up really loud because I was trying to cover up. I didn't want people to see what was behind the curtain. I didn't want people to see the doubt that I had in myself and that I actually didn't like. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like my body. I didn't like where I was in life. Many things I didn't like about myself, but I always had completely, I was always completely dressed, completely in a look. Every event, I was spot on with my clothing. I would dance until the dance floor was shut down. I really wanted people, I think I thought to myself, if enough people think I'm confident, then I have to become confident, right? Like if I speak it out enough or if I show it enough, people are really going to be like, dang, she's really confident. And I would never have to show my insecurities. And so as I started doing the work and I started really investigating, I was, looking back and I'm like, the best people that I know, the people that I look at and I'm like, I want to be like them. They're not loud. They're not boisterous. They're very quiet. They're very reserved. They walk into a room and they're there without them having to tell you that they're there. And that was who I wanted to become. I wanted to become the person whose presence was so loud without me having to say a word. And so doing the work, I'm like, I see people a lot who do this, who think, they get on social media and they're really, really loud and they go to events and they're really, really loud. Or a really big example in my life right now is my daughter plays tennis, and tennis is a really interesting sport. It's very mental, and your confidence can get shot in, a match. It's like, it's one of those sports where you will always lose more matches than you win, and you have to get really comfortable with that. But what I've noticed is my daughter is very quiet. She's very observant. She does not boast about her wins. She actually won't even tell people when she wins unless they ask her directly. She'll say things like, I played pretty well, or here's some things I want to work on. And it's not that she doesn't value her wins or value what she does. She just doesn't feel the need to talk about it. And one of the reasons is that we have watched some of the other players get very, very cocky and they're very confident, and they go out and, they tell everyone how great they are and how they're going to beat everyone and all the things. And then they go out and flop and they walk off with their head held low, and they're like, it's almost like they were trying to convince everyone how great they were because they would convince themselves how great they were. And so it took a lot of conversations with my daughter of, what kind of player do you want to be? Like, let's look at people's patterns. We know when certain people show up with this cocky attitude, they actually don't have the confidence inside of them, right? Like the players that she respects, the girls that are past her and like older than her and doing what she really wants to do, they're very quiet. When you see them at a match, they're not being loud. They're on those sidelines stretching and getting ready. When they win, they walk off the court with their head held high and a smile on their face, but they're not going around telling everyone how they won. And I think this is for me, it was like such a good reminder that fake confidence is so hard to overcome. But when you do overcome it's a light bulb moment. And so I watch these kids, even, now we have a few that do it. And I'm like, if they would just understand that the more they get out there and tell everyone how good they are, like they're not convincing themselves they're that good. and they're just really showing their insecurities louder and louder and louder. It's the kids who get on the court and just perform. It's the kids who maybe they don't even talk tennis game afterwards, right? Like they just do what they need to do and move on. And so that was that's a really good example for me in my life right now with my daughter of how you don't have to be the loudest to be confident. And in fact, the loudest people are very rarely confident. When I was in my 20s, I would have people come to me and say, "You're intimidating. People are intimidated by you." And I would always think, man, what am I doing? Like, I showed up. I was always dressed for work. I never dressed down. I always dressed up. I always, had this persona, like I have my shit together and I'm going to help people and I'm going to do my job and no one's going to know that I'm a, broke single mom at home who can't figure out how she's going to pay her light bills this month. Like I've got my shit together. And people would always say, you're intimidating. You're intimidating other people. And I would always look internally and be like, what can I change? How can I little myself? Like, how can I make myself smaller? Like, I don't want someone to think that about me. I'm not a cold person. I was cold. I was cold because I was so loud and I was boisterous and like, I felt like I had to be seen. And that was intimidating to people because they saw it as like confidence, where it was really me being so like sad inside that I was trying to convince myself that I was better than I was. And so for a long time, I took that as like, that's a really bad thing when people say that you're intimidating. And I think that's really where I started playing small in my life, is I just shrunk down to it. And even doing the work and like building the confidence internally, I noticed I wasn't really interested in being loud anymore. I really didn't care who saw me when I walked into a room. I didn't need to be seen or heard by all of these people that didn't matter. And I noticed my energy starting to shift. I noticed that when I did walk in rooms, people knew who I was. People felt my energy. People wanted to know who I was. It wasn't because I was telling them what I did or who I was or how great I was. It was because they could feel it. They could sense it. I didn't need their permission. And when you realize that you don't need other people's permissions to show up, it's like it's a complete game changer in your life. It's like a veil that will be lifted off of you. And you shine by just showing up. You shine by like walking into a room. People want that energy. And now I was in the middle of a conversation last week, actually, and someone said, how do you handle, like, sometimes you're very intimidating. Like when you come into rooms, people can get very intimidated. And I looked at this person and I said, I'm not intimidating. You're intimidated. So now I view this in a totally different light. Like, I am not intimidating. If my energy intimidates you, that's something that you should work on. That's something that you need to deal with. And I see this a lot with my daughter. Is she's a pretty decent tennis player who knows that there's a lot of work to do, but she's done a lot of work to get to where she's at. And there are other kids who are intimidated by her, and she will play small. She will get on the court and she will play down because she doesn't want to hurt their feelings, or she doesn't want to make them feel like they're not as good as her, or something along the lines of that. And we've really had to work with the fact that she's not intimidating. They're intimidated by her. So I want you to remember that showing up as your authentic, unapologetic self is not intimidating. You are shining with confidence, and that you don't have to scream it from the rooftop and tell people how confident you are. They just see it. And most of the time when people are intimidated, it's because they want that. They want to walk into a room. They want to feel the fire that you have, the energy that you have, and they don't know where to find it. So they turn to being loud, being the most obnoxious one out there, right? Like they want to be seen. They want to be heard. You have it in families too, like big families, right? You always have one or two family members who always overtake conversations or want to tell you how great they are, what they did this week when someone else is talking. And it's just, I see those things now, and I just kind of, internally, I'm like, okay, I feel a little sorry for them. Like they just haven't figured it out yet, right? But I no longer don't shine because of someone else's lack of self-confidence. I view it as, If you're intimidated by me, or if you see something in me that you want, I'm either helping you see what's possible, or I'm going to show you the way to get to where you're at. Like, there's always a way. We all have room for confidence. There's room for all of us to shine in every single room you step into. But when you decide not to shine because you're worried about someone else's opinion or that hurting someone else's feelings, just know that you're actually not helping them. You're not helping them see what's possible for themselves. So you go out, you shine bright, you do the work internally so that when you walk into a room, your energy is felt before you walk in and people want to know who you are. Thanks for being here and for choosing to be a little louder, a little braver, and a whole lot more you. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love it if you subscribed, left a review, or shared it with someone who needs it. Until next time, keep tuning in to the fire inside. Stay unquiet.